Hello, everyone. Welcome to Take the Black Live. I am Dan Selke, the editor of WintersComing.net. I am here with Fansided's own Josh Hill.
Hello.
Ably filling in for Cheryl Wassenaar of Cultures, who is on vacation this week on a boat in a landlocked state.
Yeah.
I forget exactly where.
I don't know where either, but I'm just fascinated by being in a boat in a landlocked state.
But if you're watching Cheryl, hope you're having a good time. Anyway, we are here to talk about all things Game of Thrones, all things A Song of Ice and Fire. And happily, all of a sudden today, we had quite a lot of news. The Television Critics Association press tour kicked off today. HBO is the first thing that went. And just all of a sudden, they told us things about Game of Thrones Season 8. They told us things about the prequel. They mentioned just the state of HBO in general, stuff about Westworld and Deadwood and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to break down what we learned about Game of Thrones, the final season, and beyond at this morning's Television Critics Association press junket, where HBO programming president Casey Bloys was all at Twitter with news. And thanks everyone for joining us. Hey, Dan, Joseph, Janine, Kathleen, and of course later we are giving away one of several Game of Thrones figurines, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. First, let's break down the news. Josh, were you up on the TCAs this morning?
I was, and I was also up on your outline, which perfectly outlined
that certainly
the TCAs.
helps.
It was, HBO has been in the news lately with the whole Netflix thing, so, and a variety of different reasons, but I feel like they came out pretty strong here with their stance of, I think Bloys said something, he took a few shots at Netflix, which is pretty interesting.
I think, when it comes to HBO and Netflix, I think Bloys didn't take shots at Netflix. He tried to downplay the non-existent raging war between HBO and Netflix, as he put it.
Oh, it was all passive-aggressive. Because at one point, didn't he say, like, we're getting investments, we're not going to go to a point where we were losing quality control?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a shot at Netflix.
I thought that was,
that's
maybe
a shot, because it's like Netflix, there's no way Netflix is paying attention to whatever, like, random B horror movie that's down there from some amateur indie, studio or something like that. So there's a lot of stuff on Netflix. And I interpreted that as a shot, being like, look, we're going to stay premium quality. We're not going to dabble in, just throwing a million things at you and seeing what things stick.
Do we see that he actually called out, no one is asking us to take pitches of a Love Boat reboot with some Love Boat shade.
See, another shot.
Well, what happened is that AT&T bought HBO not too long ago, and there was this town hall meeting with the new guy in charge. His name is John Stanky, which isn't a funny name. If you laugh at it, you're immature. And he basically outlined the new strategy for HBO, which was, we're going to have you produce more content because we want more money. And Bloys said things like, we're still going to maintain our premium brand, but we're going to do it on a higher scale, which could explain some of like the Game of Thrones spin-offs they're making, that they are going to start making more content. But that made some people nervous and say like, oh, HBO's over. Oh, now I guess HBO's going to produce like show after show. Because the Netflix, as you just said, they produce a lot of stuff, and I don't think they expect it all to succeed. They just kind of like put it out there, and if it gets seen, if Stranger Things becomes a hit, great. But that show could have just as easily slipped under the radar and no one ever found it.
Yeah, but it's their formula is they're going to throw so much against the wall. Like Netflix, to their credit, have found the sweet spot of, this is the amount of shows that we can put on without losing money. And they're like, they hit the profit margin sweet spot to where they've got so much on there that it's impossible for them to lose money, but just enough so that they're not overspending. Although we have no way of knowing what the ratings are, because they don't have a Nielsen rating thing, and they're so against it for that specific reason, because they can make up whatever number that they want and say, oh yeah, we got 4 billion viewers on the first episode of season 3 of Stranger Things, when really maybe they're saying, over the course of the next billion years, 4 billion people are going to watch this. So we don't know what their exact formula is. But to their credit, they figured that out. HBO has been criticized before for not having enough. When Game of Thrones was going off, or when we heard a couple of years ago that Game of Thrones was ending, the narrative immediately became, oh crap, what's next? HBO doesn't have anything after this. They tried Vinyl, it didn't work. They stumbled into Westworld.
They're trying The Deuce right now.
Yeah, The Deuce. So the narrative for HBO has always been, it's been Game of Thrones and then a giant question mark for what's after that.
Sure.
With the joke being, oh, they're going to make prequels, which they're making now. But I'm in favor of HBO going with more content. because I can see that being enough content, which is enough content to fill a void that Game of Thrones is going to leave, and they're not just letting that get sucked into the vacuum. They're actually filling that hole and riding that momentum into more shows and filling it with more quality, and not to the extent that Netflix is going, which is the easy trap to fall in and say, oh, they're just going to be Netflix now, which I don't think is true.
Right, I don't think so either. And I'm not even sure people really. I mean, that's part of the thing people like about HBO, that they don't make all the tons of shows, and they do focus on quality, and that each show they really sell and put effort behind. But I mean, if we're talking about what the way that Netflix and HBO do things differently, one thing Netflix doesn't have that it wishes it had, Game of Thrones itself, which is still a huge draw. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Just one of the things at the TCAs was Casey Bloys, president, confirmed that, not a giant surprise, but Game of Thrones Season 8, final season, is going to debut in the first half of 2019. Not a shocker. I mean, we probably figured that. But still good to have it confirmed. We knew it was going to be next year. We didn't know exactly when. So now, January to June. We're betting March or April. That's what we're thinking.
Right, yeah.
We don't know for sure, people, but we're betting March or April just because it's done filming. They have at least 5 months to do editing, post-production, which would be more than enough. Not even like giant-ass movies take over 5 months to do. Like, well, do they? Do you know? Probably not.
Probably not.
Like, every prior season has not taken that long to do special effects. And then just because the past seasons have usually aired around March or April, it's a good bet that they'll kind of get that in and just have the final season air normally. Unless they want to do it in like January or February and just be kind of special wintertime.
Yeah, winter has come.
Exactly.
That would be good. That'd be a nice
The marketing campaign would write itself.
Oh, yeah.
Be very easy.
It's very on the nose, though. It's too on the nose for Game of Thrones.
Oh,
it's
whatever.
Like,
Game of Thrones can do what it wants now. It can do whatever it wants. People will watch. It really could. It could just have a black screen with a smear of crap on it, and just like that's the.
What if the last season of the show is a black screen and it's just like the entire book? It's like
18 million
you gotta read it.
Viewers first night. Anyway, that's happening. Well, that's pretty expected.
Yeah.
The thing we weren't quite sure of that he confirmed was the Game of Thrones prequel. So they're making this show, Age of Heroes, Long Night, no name yet, but set thousands of years before the current show. There was a rumor reported by the Belfast Telegraph that they were going to have this show filming in October, which is pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about HBO becoming a more, nimble, content-rich network. The idea that they would be planning something that soon was a little surprising. Like, HBO takes its time a little more, finesses things. So folk were surprised, and it ends up they needn't have been because it's not true.
Yeah.
Casey Bloys said that the Game of Thrones prequel series that I'm just going to call The Long Night. What do you think of that?
The Long Night?
For it? Yeah, I think it's a good name.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, what are they going to call it? Game of Thrones, the prequel? Like,
Two.
Not
The
working
Long
Game
Night,
of
a
Thrones in there.
story.
Not working Game of Thrones in there, I think, is super key because we all know it's a Game of Thrones prequel.
Sure.
And if people don't know that, then let them discover it on its own. Don't force feed another Game of Thrones thing. I get from the marketing standpoint and striking while the iron is hot to throw Game of Thrones in there, but you don't have to do that. We know it exists.
I agree with you completely. I'm not sure they see that way. Like George R. R. Martin said that they're probably going to work the word Game of Thrones in there. And just, but you're right. It does seem like kind of like it's beneath them almost. Like you don't need to put Game of Thrones in the title of a prequel to get people to watch it. But I mean, you see it's like Star Wars, like Solo, a Star Wars story,
It's
Rogue
stupid.
One, a Star Wars story. Like they want you to know what movie you are seeing. And I can see HBO going that way. I hope they don't. I hope they forge their own path with it.
Yeah,
but
you got to give the fan base a little bit of credit to say, look, they're going to know what it is. And again, let people discover it. Like, what's wrong with that? So even the books, like Game of Thrones is the name of one book, is it not? And it's like, I can see it on the poster, like they've got the big text of, the name of the show, and then up right in the middle of the text in a really small font, it's Game of Thrones. And then it's the big text is the name of the show, but they're going to work that in there. I guess trademarking or whatever, but
I just hope it's classy. By the way, great comments from people. Joseph wants a hot pie show. I've been advocating for that for a long time. Hot pie sitcom. I would love that. Mike J. Curtis wants GOT the first Sunday of January. Naturally, just get it out as quick as possible. And Dan Turton hopes in March or April, and I would totally agree with that. Anyway, before I went on this tangent, I was going to say that the Game of Thrones prequel show, Age of Heroes, is going to be filmed next year, not October, as Belfast Telegraph reported, which makes sense. So the old show will wrap up. They'll start production on the new show, and that probably means, you can tell me if I'm wrong, they'll have the new show debuting 2020, maybe late 2019.
That's not bad. 2020, I think you could kind of starting the next decade with a new Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
My question is, because I don't know anything about this story as far as where it exists in the Game of Thrones chronology, is this going to be like a Better Call Saul situation where the deeper into the season we get, it's like, we're starting to break bad, or we're going to start seeing characters maybe like the Mad King or something like that, or as Ned.
It's like it's that thousands of years before. So no one will be born for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Which is good and bad, right?
I like that,
because that means it's a clean break. There's no chance of having a Kit Harington cameo. It cannot happen.
I like it.
Or a Ned Stark cameo. White Walkers might still be around. Like, there could be dragons, but not the ones we know.
I'm sure there'll be like callbacks, like little Easter eggs and stuff. But not having the characters come back, I dislike
it's
strongly.
solid.
Although I say that,
and again, Better Call Saul has been doing really well with that.
Exactly. I was going to say, that being said, the more that Better Call Saul breaks bad, the more interesting it gets. But I think that's kind of a lightning in the bottle thing, where it's like, you're
kind of right.
Replicate it.
That show is kind of proving fictional wisdom wrong on prequels in a lot of ways. It's a great show. So that is happening. I got some good comments here. Can't come soon enough, says Marilyn. I agree. 2020. Hope I'm still around by then, says Julie Davies. You'll be around by then, Julie Davies.
I thought she meant you. I was like, wow, Julie. Julie, you'll be around. You'll be around.
And this is a good one. Donna says that I heard D&D, Benioff and Weiss, people who buy Game of Thrones, not involved in the prequels. Is that correct? It may look like a completely different show. And that is true, Donna. Benioff and Weiss, the guys behind Game of Thrones, are not involved in the prequels. They are so finished. They are moving on to other things. They're going to make Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And it could be a different show, which I'm all for. I'm for having a new angle, a new feeling, because you just don't want to repeat yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm just thinking about your hot pie sitcom. I'm like, that would be exactly the type of different that we need.
Half hour. I'm not kidding. Like
a Cheers style show. Like it's hot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like real quick. My dream is to have, because they want more than one show if they can get it. So fine, like have your hour-long epic whatever, but then have like a half-hour lighter thing to like go with it.
Yeah.
I would be more willing to watch the hour-long drama if you came with a half-hour fun thing. Just saying. Hot pie, Cheers, into the crossroads. He bakes bread, he falls in love with the waitress, yada, 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 that kind of thing. Okay. Before we get to the giveaway, which is still coming, let's talk another notes about what happened to the TCAs, because I got to mention Confederate real quick. Remember this show?
Oh, yeah.
This was the show that Benioff and Weiss, the Game of Thrones guys, were going to make before they got tapped for Star Wars. It was going to be an alternate history of the United States, where the Civil War was fought to a standstill and slavery was still legal, and it caused a ridiculously big backlash, probably for good reason. And since then, they haven't really mentioned it. And somebody asked about it at the TCAs, and Blois just said, no change, everyone's very busy. Now, what's that say to you?
It says to me that I think the show is on hiatus.
Yeah,
I don't think
that
they're
show
making
is so
it.
dead.
Which is good. Like, that was a very bad idea that didn't need to happen, and clearly it's not going to happen. So the problem with that is it's the same problem that I had with, did you see Detroit, the Catherine Bigelow movie? So it's a movie about the Detroit riots in the 1960s, and it's a really in-your-face, aggressive, take on real. It's very real. It's very raw. People getting beat. Yeah. But it's made by a couple of white people, and it's a black story, and it's very aggressive, and it's very violent, and it's impossible to see past who is making that art. So, and it was a very well-made film. I mean, Catherine Bigelow, she's a great director, and it was written by the guy who she did. I'm blanking on the movie now, but they won
Mark Bowl.
Mark Bowl.
The Hurt Locker.
The Hurt Locker.
Movie.
Yeah.
I remember it was great.
So it's impossible to get past the idea of this was created by these two people. Now, if it was a Barry Jenkins thing, I'd be a little bit more inclined to say, okay, I get where this is coming from, because it's not really their story to tell. Like, especially, and that was a true story. Catherine Bigelow was telling a true story. This is like a fantasy where slavery still exists, told by a couple of white guys. Now, whether or not you take the creativity out of it, the optics, you can't get past it in this day and age. So the idea that this show isn't going to happen is a very good thing. And I think that they fell into Star Wars at the right time where they're like, oh, we're too busy with Star Wars. Sorry, we can't make this horrible idea that we had.
Yeah,
but I think they'll be busy for a while every single time Confederate comes up.
Right. It's a complicated issue. I would talk more about it, but I see people who want to get to the giveaway. So
Naturally.
I think we're gonna get into it.
Let's
Although
give away.
One quick last thing. Are you excited for a Deadwood movie?
Yes, Deadwood. I'm absolutely excited for a Deadwood movie.
Great, cut it off
now
there.
that it's
Cut it
finally happening. Fingers crossed.
Okay. Well, I mean, it'll happen. It's this year they're making it apparently in October.
Yeah, well,
So,
I'll
like, they
believe
cut
it
it
when
off.
I'm seeing it. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Now that we've gone through the news, let's get to the thing some of you are probably here for. We're gonna give away one of 5 Game of Thrones action figures. Let's flash them up on the screen there, shall we, Richard? Oh.
There we go. Oh, those are cool.
So, thanks to fun.com, partners at fun.com, we are able to give away one of these 5 figures. We got 5 to choose from. We got an Arya 11-inch statue, valued at almost $200, the most expensive one on this little list. We got a 8-inch Brienne statue, valued at $20. I feel like I should say this just in case. So some of these do vary, but they're all, fun take-home items. We got a Jon Snow bust from Battle of the Bastards, 6 inches, valued at $100. Pretty cool there. We got 2 Daenerys statues. One 8-inch, that kind of figure on the right there, for $30, and a second one of her lounging with Drogon, 9 inches front to back, valued at $90. And you fine viewers could have one of these mailed directly to you. And here's the way it's going to work. When we do a giveaway, I am going to ask a trivia question about something related to Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. You guys are going to email your answers to dan.selke@winteriscoming.net. Richard, could you put that in the comments? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask a trivia question, and you're going to email your answers to that email address, dan@winteriscoming.net. The first person to get the correct answer, I will write back, say congratulations, ask you which one you want, which of the figures you want, ask for your address, and then it will be mailed out to you. Congratulations, preemptively. But you got to get back to me within 24 hours with your selection, or move on to the person who gave the answer second fastest, third and fourth, and so on until I get something I can use. All right. So to win one of these beautiful figures from fun.com, you got to answer the following trivia question. Okay. In the Song of Ice and Fire novels, what is the name of the chess-like board game Tyrion Lannister plays during his travels in Essos? In A Dance with Dragons, Tyrion's going to Essos. He leaves King's Landing after killing his father. He travels. This is not in the show, but he spends some time playing this kind of Westerosi version of chess, basically. And George R. R. Martin goes into some detail about it. What is that game called? It's a big hit in Essos. A bunch of different people play it. It involves little pieces, elephants, dragons, yada, yada, yada. What is the name of the chess-like game Tyrion Lannister plays in the Song of Ice and Fire novels after he leaves King's Landing following the death of his father on the toilet? Give the answer to that question. Email it to dan.selke@winteriscoming.net. I see some folk already know it, but you got to email me. Mm-hmm. And just as a final precaution, unfortunately, this is only available to U.S. Citizens or people in the U.S., not citizens. If you live here, we can mail it to you. And we thank fun.com for letting us do this. All right, and now, after that's done, I'd like to bring on fan-sided zone Josh Hill for a continuing series that we call A Song of Dan and Josh.
Yes.
Where the two of us go through every chapter of the Song of Ice and Fire novels, mining them for insights. What makes them work?
Oh, yeah.
What doesn't make them work? Are they good? Are they bad? How does it happen? I've read all the books multiple times. Josh has never read the books. First time through the books. You'll get to Kvass eventually, in a longest time from now. And let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Today we covered Eddard XV, the final Eddard chapter. Spoiler alert, we'll never get. Too bad. And Catelyn IX.
Yeah.
So Eddard XV, pretty simple. He's in a dungeon. He's in the Red Keep. He has a talk with Varys. Maybe I shouldn't have told you this is the final Eddard chapter. If you had just read it, would you think it's the final Eddard chapter?
Probably not. I would think that he maybe had some more story to tell or something like that, or maybe to toil away. Maybe we would have more his perspective of like the execution, and then we would flip to another character for the execution. So I wouldn't have seen this as his final chapter, which almost works because it is a very sudden death. So the fact that we don't have some nice little send off where it's like, and then he walks to the executioning stage,
right,
and that was Ned. It's just like he's doing this thing,
was Ned.
and then it's done. So we have no idea that it's coming. So I feel like that's almost fitting in the way that his story has gone so far.
Fair enough. I mean, because the chapter is like an interstitial thing. It like ends with kind of Varys giving him this choice.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to, confess your crimes, which is a lie, and say that Joffrey is the true king, which is a lie, and just lie your ass off in order to save your life and the life of your daughter? Or do you want to, hang on to the truth and surely be killed?
Yeah.
Which is kind of his dilemma.
Yeah, and usually when like you get these questions asked, you get
an answer.
You get an answer, and that would imply there's another chapter,
but not from Ned's perspective.
Exactly, and that like implies that there is maybe another chapter here. Which again, the suddenness of it just ending is, and also it gives it. I mean, I don't know how it all plays out in the book. I mean, we know how it goes in the show.
Well, it's the same.
But but from the standpoint of it's all spiraling out of control, like he's made his decision and now you're out of his head and there's no rationalizing it. It's just like you're completely on the outside watching him toil away as he's made his decision and there's nothing to change all the things that are going on around him. So to take us out of his head and make us watch as he just goes down this dark hole of death, that's...
Dark hole of death, very evocative. And we'll see that soon enough. Julie says it was complete shock that Ned actually got the chop, which, I completely sympathize with that. Anyway, I think the big thing we get in this chapter, it's very simple. Ned's in a dungeon, and Varys visits him. Like, that's the whole thing. They have a conversation. What do they talk about, Ned and Varys? Who comes in disguise again, by the way. It's like grizzled, like hair in his face and all dirty. Like, Ned doesn't recognize him.
It was almost... I mean, I was trying to get a read on Varys because he's kind of like giving a whole spiel about how isn't it so terrible that the innocent are always the ones that go down, and it's like, oh man, come on, like what's going to happen here. But he also made it very clear that he's kind of in business for the realm. He's not somebody who's been bought off or working for Cersei or for Littlefinger. It's like he is the guy of the land. He is the man of the land. So, but.
That is what he claims, right? Yeah. I serve the realm, and the realm needs peace. And I mean, he advises Ned to do the lying thing, to just do what Cersei wants. Tell her that Joffrey's the king, swear to it, so she has this kind of out to get out of your son. Like, basically, what she wants him to do that to pacify Robb. She figures, okay, if I can get Ned on the record saying, my son's the rightful king, and I was bad, I'm sorry, and then go back, they won't have any reason to come and fight me. Because I got to deal with Stannis right now. He's the bigger problem, and Renly. So I got to fight them. I can't fight this northern weirdo kid up there. So that's what she wants. And Ned doesn't want to do that because he's he likes the truth. He's into the truth. And Varys says he wants to do that for the good of the realm. Do we buy that completely? Because I mean, we also know we've seen him conspiring in this book with Illyrio Mopatis, who is the one who's kind of grooming Viserys and Daenerys to take over. And we know at the end of the day, he actually wants a Targaryen restoration. So is he bluffing here? Is he just so deep into the role of... Or perhaps he's like playing a kind of role that he knows Ned will respond to.
Yeah, that's the way I interpreted it, which is why he kind of gave him that spiel about, oh man, isn't it so awful that everybody who tells the truth just gets a bad rap, which is true. Like, he's not necessarily twisting the truth there. He's being very honest.
It does work. I mean, Ned does end up lying. It doesn't do him any good. But...
And that's he's playing the part to kind of finally get Ned to do what he needs him to do. Right. So, and he was actually being honest and saying it sucks that when you tell the truth, it doesn't really work out for you, which is Ned's entire journey in this story, which is being a slave to the truth, and this is where it gets you. So
in a dungeon, like for days on end,
thinking about how Robert is probably going to, berate him for wanting to stick true to his morals and be the honorable
Oh, you have
guy.
these weird,
and
like, kind of acid trip
hallucinations,
things going on. His legs hurting more and more. Yeah, not a good place. Although, isn't it ironic that when he finally does decide to lie, that when he finally starts to play the game a bit, okay, I will lie to save myself and my daughter, it doesn't matter that he ends up getting killed anyway because Joffrey's a little psychopath.
Yeah. I wonder if what would have happened if he would have stayed true to his morals, if he would have just rode out the hero's tale to the end. Was there a little bit of room for an escape? Was there room for him to figure out, okay, this is how I can get out of it? Or maybe somebody comes to his aid. Maybe he goes that route and it forces somebody else's hand who's playing the game. They're like, oh, damn it, now we need to help Ned. So I don't know. I guess we'll never know. But it is good. I like that he finally starts playing the game. And as soon as he sells his soul, it's like, for what? For nothing. You lose.
So. I mean, I like to think that it would have made a difference, which, by the way, I think is a really great point and a really kind of funny point about it, is the whole magic of the book, I've been saying that for a while, is that Ned isn't the main character in the story, isn't it? Because in this kind of story, you expect the heroic guy to stay at the center of the story. And then really what ends up happening is Joffrey, who's kind of a tangential character, changes everything. And just the idea to have a big, important story turn on the act of like a little shrimpy asswipe is a very bold move.
Yeah.
Because, little shrimpy asswipes don't change stories like that. They're tertiary characters, which is kind of the amazing thing about it. And true to life, because sometimes random stuff just happens. Yeah. And history turns on that. By the way, I really like this comment from, oh my God, from Karen. Or they would have Joffrey, or Varys would like Joffrey on the throne because it would be easier for Dany to conquer him, which I like that too. So maybe there's just like, ooh, we better if Joffrey's on here because Stannis would be difficult to do, but
Joffrey's
not.
Just a little kid.
And by the way, Corey Smith, writer, gives me a link to an Entertainment Weekly article that I cannot play because I'm on a show. So if you could look at it and maybe write it up on Wick, it would be terrific. Why would we do that?
Oh, man.
Okay. Okay, so let's go on to Catelyn IX.
Yes.
Okay, this is Catelyn the Riverlands. Oh, wait, this is Catelyn and Robb trying to cross a bridge that's owned by Walder Frey.
Yep.
Walder Frey comes in.
Old meat pies.
What do you think of his introduction? We meet Walder Frey for the first time.
I just can't. I can never imagine anybody else other than the actor who plays him on the show. Like, that's just, it's so...
He did a really good job.
And I see him in everything else now, and I'm just like, oh, it's Walder Frey. Like, he was in Broadchurch. I was like, oh, it's Walder Frey. He's in Harry Potter. I forgot about that. I'm like, oh, Walder Frey and his cat. Like, careful.
And he looks the same, even though it was like over 10 years ago.
15 years ago. Yeah. Almost 20 years ago, and he looks exactly the same.
Once you're typecast, you're typecast.
You are. This was an interesting chapter in that it kind of reminded me a little bit of The Last Jedi, where a major plot point of The Last Jedi is just...
a lot of things remind you of The Last Jedi.
It's like, because a major plot point in The Last Jedi is this ship is moving.
Yes.
And we need to catch the ship. And this is very basic. It's like, we need to cross the bridge. There's the bridge. Let's make a deal. And like, it was just there's not a whole lot that goes on, but there's so much that happens. And that's, again, a lot of these chapters are like that, where they seem minimalist, but there's just packed with a ton of stuff. Because here he's making this blockbuster trade to like marry off his children and marry off, and get his children jobs here with being squires and being wards in the north.
Like small kind of petty things.
Just to cross a bridge. It's like, again, it highlights that in this huge game that we're all playing, and everybody's so obsessed with the throne and with armies and with power. It's like even the act of crossing a bridge you can't do without this laundry list of demands being met. And in the end, it doesn't matter because the White Walkers are coming. So here we are, we're squabbling over the crossing of a bridge, when really, what is this all about? What does it mean? Because the White Walkers are coming. So yeah,
the perspective tricks are great in the book.
Yeah.
Just the way they kind of put this against something much bigger that'll come later. And it's just very, very, very effective. Let's talk about Catelyn really quick in it, because Julie Davies, who's a longtime watcher and commenter, you're watching right now. Hello, Julie.
Julie's
Love
an
your
all-star.
commented. You sent in a comment to us about Catelyn, just in general. We asked for your opinions about Catelyn, and you're not a big fan, Julie. And one of the things we had to say was about this moment, just talking about how Catelyn being kind of having an inflated sense of self and thinking she's the only one who can go and meet Walder Frey and make this deal, and then making kind of a bad one that sacrifices Rob's future for a good cause, but should have allowed Rob to have a voice in that decision. Personally, I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. So I'm reading this chapter, and I'm thinking about your comment, and I think it lays out pretty clearly why Catelyn was the one to go and Julie, she says, "Hate Catelyn." All right, let's try to change your mind. It lays out pretty clearly why they thought that Catelyn would be the best choice to do it. Mm-hmm. Because Rob and his army are on the one side of the river, on the Twins. They need to get across the bridge so they can fight Jaime's army.
Yeah.
And they're worried that if they send Rob in, Walder Frey is the kind of treacherous bastard who just might kill him and turn him over to the Lannisters. And Rob can't be lost. He's the king. Mm-hmm. If he's lost, it all falls apart. Like, then there'll be a jockeying for who should do it next. Bran can't do it. He's back at Winterfell. He has no legs. Rickon's a baby. Sansa and Arya are gone. Like, all the lords would fight. Catelyn is a wife of the lord. She would also have to fight, but it might not win. So I think the reason Catelyn goes is because she's the right person, because she is important, but she's not so important you couldn't lose her and survive. I think that's why she does it. I think it's kind of self-sacrificing in a way, because she risks herself to go do this. As for the deal she makes, I mean, I think it's the kind of thing that you just have to swallow if you want to. And Rob does have a call.
Yeah.
Like, she says, so, okay, he wants you to marry his daughter. You're a squire. You're going to have a squire, his, grandson now. We're going to take two of them in Winterfell.
Marrying off Arya.
Yeah, marry off Arya. She's not going to like that, he says, which she would not. And then Rob does say, do I have to? Catelyn's like, if you want to cross, yes. And he says, okay, fine, I'll do it. He could have said no. It was a difficult choice. I don't think it was the wrong choice.
No, I agree. I think it was the right choice to make. And I wonder if it was Catelyn, not even specifically just Catelyn, but this plan, I don't know if we necessarily had to stick to it. Mm-hmm. So we can agree at the time to be like, all right, fine, we'll do all these things. You can hire the squire, we'll marry this off. Mm-hmm. But how attached are they to seeing the deal through? Like, I understand that there's the loyalty and the bond and everything like that, but it's not like Walder Frey is a Santa Claus. Like, they're not betraying the world's most beloved man here. It's Walder Frey. No. So I was reading them make the deal, but in the back of my mind, I was like, well, first of all, Arya is not going to go for that. So right there, the deal's busted a little bit. Right. Yeah, there's no way in hell she's going for that. She'll run away if she has to. Yeah. Or she'll find some really creative, smart way to get out of it. Rob,
she'll stab somebody.
Yeah, Rob, whatever. I guess he can go with it for then. But then he's kind of like almost a Robert Baratheon in that way, where it's like, is he really going to be loyal to his wife? Is he really going to do this? He's going to run around, and you're almost creating a problem. History is repeating itself, and you can kind of see why Robert and these kings are kind of the way that they are, because it's like, well, they have to make these deals that they don't want to make, and then they think that they can run around on this. So I didn't think the deal would last. I didn't hate Catelyn for making it. Mm-hmm. I think it was the only move that they could have made. Like, what were they going to do? They were just they were kind of out of options. So
I agree with you, but I do think there's a big hole in your argument that Julie points out, that Rob does end up going against his word, and it does not work out well. He marries somebody else, and then Walder Frey murders them all.
Yeah.
So I would give some side eye to the idea of, we can just ignore it.
Yeah.
He tried that. It didn't work.
Yeah. Very, very poorly. Yeah. All right. Well,
I mean, and to Julie, I'd say that, yes, it did not work out. But I think the great thing about this series is that you just can't see that far into the future.
Yeah.
That this gamble ends up working out. They get across the bridge. They capture Jaime Lannister. They defeat Tywin's army. They send off Roose Bolton to lead that. What doesn't work out later is Rob, and we'll talk about it when we get to it, decides, I want to marry this girl instead, and does that. So Catelyn commits them to this, and Rob agrees to this. In the long run, it doesn't work out at all. In the short term, it works out better. But in the long term, I don't think you can pin it all on one person. I think, like a lot of things in this series, there's a lot of different kind of tributary causes that
Yeah.
flow into a bigger river.
Yeah.
Which I think is rich and neat. And I will talk more about your comment soon, Julie, because there was more to it. But first, I just want to really quick just say I love the descriptions of Walder Frey in this. I think it's just a very vivid character, jumps right off the screen, or the page, rather. Just, the descriptions are great. Like, Lord Walder was 90, a wizened pink weasel with a bald-spotted head, too gouty to stand unassisted. And, like, the first time we see him, he's, like, ordering around his kids and grandkids. He has this running theme of, like, he's always talking about, like, I have this one son. He's going to be Lord. Well, I'm not dead yet. I'm going to live just to spite him. Which is just, that's Walder Frey.
Yeah.
He's that kind of guy. He will outlive you into his hundreds, not because he wants to live, because he just doesn't want you to be happy.
Like
that's Walder
Strom
Frey's character in a
Thurmond.
nutshell.
He's the Strom Thurmond of Westeros.
Walder Frey is the Strom Thurmond of Westeros, absolutely. So I love that aspect. He has like this 16-year-old wife, even though he's 90, and he's like, he's just for me. Like, it's so gross, but you remember that. You remember him. He definitely stands out. And there's also this one bit where, okay, so on the one page, he talks for like literally a page and a half, just like rambling about how put upon he is. And I kind of like to think that was Martin's way of like putting us in the mindset of Catelyn, just in showing us how patient she would have to be. Like, okay, he's still rambling. He's rambling. Just gotta sit here and just kind of smile pleasantly until he's finished.
I wonder if this book came out today, if we would have a whole bunch of think pieces about how Walder Frey is Donald Trump.
Oh, we absolutely.
You know you would. I was
if
kind of
season 1, if season 3 came out a few years later, we would have.
Yeah, I was seeing that parallel a little bit when I was reading this, because he's just sitting there rambling, and it's always like, talk about wanting to outlast just despite, and like he's the guy, he's the man, and it's all this kind of stuff. And I definitely got that parallel, which again, I guess kind of goes back, because we've talked about this multiple times with George R.R. Martin. Is this him replicating this part of history, like with the Dothraki? Is that an interpretation of Native Americans and indigenous people and stuff like that? So it's just it's funny how the book came out in 97. We were already comparing it to things that had happened in history, and here we are in 2018 talking about the book, talking about how these characters, this connects to this person, this connects to that event, this is that. So it's timeless classic is a very haughty thing to kind of throw out there, but it is kind of like a timeless thing where it's like different eras. We're connecting the literature to real world things, and I think that's that's a testament to how well George R. R. Martin put this together with the themes and everything like that. And it's just a cool little.
Oh no, I definitely think there's a timelessness quality to it, and that I think the proof of that is that you compare Walder Frey to different people when you read it.
Yeah.
Like, he's Bush in one time, he's Cheney another time, he's Trump in another time. Just the characters who are written just to be kind of themselves have a timelessness that just will span whenever you need them to. Like, if you're not trying to make an allegory for something, it'll be an allegory for everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
is the kind of way I'd put it. Okay, let's end with some more discussion of Julie's comment, because it was really, really good. Julie, I'm serious. I really enjoyed reading your comment.
It was fantastic.
And you're still arguing on here. He wanted to get across the bridge. He didn't understand to think of the consequences. And no, he didn't. But I would argue that he did, as king, know he was going to have to assume some responsibility. But you're right, Julie. What you pointed out mostly was that you didn't like Catelyn for the biggest reason was her treatment of Jon, which I do agree is the biggest black mark on her character. I mean, here's a woman who's married, probably as a teenager, like late teens, to Ned, and then she doesn't know him. He goes up to war because it's one of those arranged things. He comes back, he has a baby, like, it's my best, we're going to raise it. And she's like, oh, okay. And just hates him, like, and doesn't make a huge secret of it either.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty upfront with, I do not like you and wish you were gone. It's rough. It's very hard on Jon. But I guess where I can still find me like Catelyn is I don't think that one black mark in your character is your whole character.
No.
I think she has other things that she does very well, other good qualities. But yeah, I fully acknowledge it's a horrible thing. That's a terrible way to act, and it didn't do any good for anybody, especially Jon. But I can still look to her better qualities and say, on the whole, she's someone I want in my corner.
Yeah, I'm siding a little bit with Julie on this one in that it's very hard to overlook. My thing about it though is because she didn't know the real story of John.
She didn't.
So retrospectively, if she would have known exactly what the situation was and what John was and where he came from and why Ned was bringing him back and why Ned wanted to look over him, I think that she didn't get all the evidence. So she was judging a case unfairly because she was biased against what she thought was happening. Ned comes home with a bastard child. Ned got it on when they were married and lived outside of that marriage. So naturally, that's going to make her mad, and that's going to pit her against John. Whereas if I think she would have had all the facts, I think if she would have known where he was coming from, then if she reacts the same way, I'm completely out on Catelyn. I'm like, come on, you can't do that. But I think I'm going to give her a retroactive benefit of the doubt in that she didn't know the full story. I want to say that if she would have known the full story, she would have had a different reaction. But I can see why people are out on Catelyn because there are black marks. Then there's this, and this is a very hard one to look past. But I agree with you in that there's other qualities when you're looking at it. When you have the God view of everything that she did, you have to take everything into account, and that's you can't just let one bad thing spoil everything.
I mean, one really bad thing. I mean, that's a whole discussion though. Like, why didn't Ned tell her? I mean, that's something we can talk about maybe a little later, because that's a whole other talk. I'm not really entirely sure why. I mean, at least if not in the beginning, then like later, once he trusted her. But I don't know. That's a discussion for another time.
It's like a really glaring fact for Honorable Ned to be like, never mind. Anyways, here's the kid.
He wanted to protect him. He didn't want to risk the secret getting out and Robert killing him.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why he did it, but it's just like the fact that he's going through this entire book and literally is going to get his head chopped off because he was so bound to the truth. It's like, really? You're just going to kind of smudge the facts on that one and not tell Catelyn the whole truth?
It's one of the great ironies of him.
It is.
And again, that every character in this story, except maybe like Ramsay Bolton or something, has light and dark to them. I think it's one of the things that makes it really good. That even good characters have bad things they've done, and even bad characters usually have ways to look at them that aren't terrible. Cersei, for instance, has some good qualities to her. All right, what a fun philosophical discussion. Next week, let's hit the next chapter, which is Jon, and then a Daenerys chapter.
All right.
So Jon, Daenerys, who worked out okay, more or less, we can see. So it didn't stop them. And guys, if you have any other comments, feel free to email them to dan.selke@winterscoming.net. We'll happy to discuss them on the show. But we'll see you next week, Wednesday at 4 p.m. for more Game of Thrones news, more Song of Ice and Fire discussion, and more good times. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.